What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this past Friday we got the much anticipated Resident Evil 4 remake, and since I'm making this video, obviously I've played it and I want to talk about it. So without further ado, let's rock. While I do consider myself a pretty big Resident Evil fan, I didn't start off that way. I definitely came into the franchise later in my life. I rented the first game from Blockbuster, which kind of tells you how long ago this was, and I just couldn't get over the controls. They drove me insane. It wasn't until years later that my good friend and co-host of my podcast, The Nerds You're Looking For, convinced me to co-op RE5 with him, and then we eventually did the same for Resident Evil 6, and I enjoyed playing those games with him so much that I finally decided to circle back to the Resident Evil games that I had missed previously. And I say all of that to explain that I don't have the nostalgia that most people do for the original game. It is a great game. I do think that it has influenced a generation of action adventure games. I've talked about this on past videos, but The Last of Us is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's clearly influenced by Resident Evil 4. But despite not playing it when it was first released, I love Resident Evil 4. Out of all of the Resident Evil remakes that we've gotten recently, I feel like it was the one that needed the remake the least. As many of you probably already know, the Resident Evil 4 remake, like all Resident Evil games, was developed and published by Capcom. It was released on March 24th for PlayStation 4 and 5, PC, and Xbox Series S and X. Despite being released for PlayStation 4, there are no plans for it to be released for Xbox One. And if you saw my last video where I kind of reviewed my Steam Deck, which a lot of people are liking that video, I definitely appreciate that. I've been enjoying my Steam Deck so much that I decided, despite normally buying these types of games on my PlayStation 5, decided to get it on my PC, and I've been kind of bouncing back from my PC and my Steam Deck with the Resident Evil 4 remake, and they both play beautifully. And to be honest, I expected to like this game. It was one of my most anticipated games of the year, which is saying a lot because there does seem to be a lot of really cool video games that are slated to be released this year. But I didn't expect to be completely blown away by this game. It had a high bar to clear, and the ease that it cleared that bar was very, very impressive. Like I said with the Dead Space remake, which it seems like 2023 is shaping up to be the year of the horror remakes, it's not just a fresh coat of paint. The Resident Evil 4 remake obviously follows Leon, who is sent to rural Spain to rescue the president's daughter, where he encounters a religious cult. And I mentioned this in my Dead Space remake review, but I'm always going to lean on the side of giving characters more depth, and they definitely do this in the remake. We understand Leon's backstory better in the remake versus the original. We understand why he's more of a badass in this game versus Resident Evil 2. They do take out some of the cheese with Leon, but his classic one-liners are still here. He actually has chemistry with Ashley, which I appreciate. We'll get into more of that later. And the side characters in general, it feels like they fleshed them out as well. They do turn down the thirsty stuff, which I definitely appreciated. The jet ski conversation isn't such a cringeworthy conversation anymore. And they don't make Luis feel like a sexual predator anymore.
Small world, eh? Well, I see that the president's equipped his daughter with ballistics too.
And like I said earlier, the Resident Evil 4 remake isn't just a new fresh coat of paint, but that fresh coat of paint is here. This game looks awesome. It's a little bit darker than the original game, but I say that in the best way possible. I love the gore in this game. There are plenty of times where you'll blow somebody's head off with a shotgun and you'll see the little tentacles hanging out of their neck. It looks awesome. And then there's like these surprise decapitations that will happen every so often that made the gore fan in me chuckle. For the most part, I did appreciate the design choices that they made in the remake versus the original. I'm looking at you, Roman. You look so much better in this game than you ever did in the original. I also, and this is a little bit more of a subtle change, but I definitely appreciated that they threw in some stuff in the environment, in the island, that kind of blends that environment with the stuff that we saw earlier in the game. It's not a game changer, but I definitely appreciate that they try to blend the environments a little bit more in this game versus the original. But that being said, not all of the design choices were perfect. I especially didn't love the look of the dogs in the courtyard maze scene. I thought that they looked pretty silly. They basically looked like if the Harry Potter monster book came to life as a dog, so pretty dumb. But for the most part, I appreciated the design choices in this game. Unfortunately, if you're talking about how good RE4 Remake looks, you have to bring up the rain, because people are losing their actual minds at how bad they think the rain looks in this game. Me personally, I don't think it looks that bad. Could it look better? Yes, of course, but Capcom has already come out and said that they're actively working on making it look better, so I'm going to keep them at their word and just assume that it will look better in updates. And to be honest, the RE4 Remake is a pretty tough game. I play a lot of these types of games, and I definitely struggled at the very beginning. There is a steep learning curve. There are a lot of new mechanics that take a lot of getting used to, but once you get the feeling for this game, once that light bulb goes off, the combat feels so good. The knife parry to shoot him in the head to roundhouse kick is perfection. Mwah. And you heard me right. You can now, with the RE4 Remake, parry with your knife. It is breakable. You'll see your knife's durability right next to your health bar, so you do have to be strategic when you use it. However, you can repair it at the merchant, and it's not super expensive. You also get plenty of knives as you go along in the game, so I never really felt like I needed to worry about my knife's durability. Also, the parry window on the knife is very generous, so it makes using it a legit strategy. You can now also move as you shoot, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it makes the combat a lot more user-friendly. They also give you a brand new gun called the Bolt Thrower, which helps you conserve ammo, because as long as you're careful with where you shoot the bolts, you can actually retrieve them. A lot of the times, because the gun wasn't super powerful, I would wait until I had everybody eliminated and I was just down to one enemy, and then I would just kill it with the bolt thrower and then retrieve the bolts, and it basically became a free kill. There's also now crouch walking in Resident Evil 4. You can now crouch walk to kind of sneak up on enemies. I mentioned earlier that Resident Evil 4 definitely influenced games like The Last of Us, and it feels like The Last of Us returned the favor. Leon must have saw Joel crouch walking a lot in The Last of Us and was like, hey man, I definitely want to do that too. Don't get me wrong, stealth is not a huge part of this game. It's just nice to have that option. A lot of times when I was going into a crowded area with a lot of enemies, I would try to sneak up on a couple of them to kind of thin it out a little bit before one of them would see me and the shit would hit the fan. It definitely feels like the development team went into the remake wanting to tweak the outdated stuff from the original game. Most notably, the quick time events are completely gone, which is great. It's 2023. We shouldn't have any QTE stuff in video games anymore. They also fine-tune a lot of the other sections of the game. Most notably for me, the minecart part of the original game is super frustrating, but they made it a lot of fun in the remake. I had a blast riding around with Luis in a minecart in the remake. It kind of felt like I was a kid again playing the Donkey Kong Country minecart level for the first time. It was a lot of fun. On the other hand, there is a late game mini boss that is completely cut. I was very surprised that it was cut. That being said, anytime that this game cut something from the original game, they put something in its place. Most notably, the side quests. There are brand new side quests that I think a lot of the OG RE4 players are going to appreciate. It definitely feels a breath of fresh air to this game. They're not world beaters by any means. A lot of times they're just shoot those medallions or kill the rats or whatever. So they're not amazing, but again, they're just something else to do. There's also a lot of exploration in this remake versus the original game, especially around the lake. I explored the lake a lot. It felt like I was playing God of War again because I was just taking my boat all around that lake, which I definitely appreciate. Of course, in true RE fashion, this game wants you to play it more than once, and there's a great New Game Plus mode. Unfortunately, not all of the outdated stuff was completely cut from this game. The escort mission stuff is here for the most part, unfortunately. Not super surprising because it's such a big part of the original game. I don't see how they would have been able to cut it completely from the remake. That being said, they did kind of tweak it. Ashley doesn't have her annoying health bar anymore, which helps. It also kind of feels like they fine-tuned her AI, or maybe I'm just better at this game than I was when I first played the original, but she doesn't seem to get captured as much in the remake versus the original. And they also, their relationship feels more genuine because they feel like they have more chemistry, because a lot of the times in the remake, if they're together, they're chit-chatting about something, or he's thanking her for getting a ladder for him or something, and it just feels like that makes the relationship between Leon and Ashley feel more genuine. Now, of course, this is pending a replay. I've only played RE4 Remake once, but just knee-jerk, off-the-cuff reaction, I think it would go in my top 3 Resident Evil games of all time. For me, personally, my favorite is RE Village. Probably already lost some new listeners right off the bat by saying that, but I love that game. It's so much fun. And then probably the RE2 remake is 2, and then the RE4 remake is right there. And I think probably 4, if I was gonna do like a top 5, again, this is completely off the cuff, I'd probably put the original RE4. So I still love that game, but again, this is pending a replay, New Game Plus, all that stuff. But I loved this game. It was really, really fun. I think out of 5 stars, I'd probably give this a 4.5. It's not a perfect game, but I really, really enjoyed it. But of course, those are just my opinions on the RE4 remake. I'd love to hear yours in the comments down below, especially if you're a big fan of the franchise and you've played all the other games. I'd love to hear, like, what's your top 5 Resident Evil games of all time? Let me know in the comments down below. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, definitely smash that like button, as the kids say. Consider subscribing. If you do subscribe, ding that bell. We are so close to 1 million subscribers. We're only like over 999,000 subscribers away from getting that 1 million. So we're like real close. So definitely help us out a lot if you hit that subscribe button and ding that bell. But until next video, take it easy. What's up, YouTube people? It's your boy Patty McNinja, and this is my boy Yoshi, aka Kitty Boy, and we were just talking and we agree that since you made it this far in the video, you might as well subscribe. You wouldn't want to disappoint Kitty Boy, would you?